We had first snow 2 minutes ago, I think. And so greetings to everyone watching from Sweden. And we talked a little bit before we started recording here, and you said a few things that was so great. That you said that you haven't done this before. You started a new channel. You don't have any subscribers. No one knows who you are. But you did one thing. You wrote and asked if I could come on your podcast. And the thing is that we get a lot of these requests. So many of these requests, and it's just not possible to do everything. But there was something in the way you asked. And here we are, because your channel was pretty new. So you didn't really have the numbers to show for it. But I felt that, maybe we should still do it. And it's really the power of asking, right? You just asked, and you asked nicely. And it worked.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm a big fan of your channel. I love it so much, and we can go into the details later. I know you've worked as an engineer for a long time, right? And there is a video you made, I think it was a month ago, which is called 15 Mistakes That Will Cost You Everything, which is one of my absolute favorite video. So guys, in the comment down below, go and check out CTO Larsson, because it is an amazing content creator.
The message that I have on my channel, it's not a message that appeals to the persons who just come into this industry. I'm saying that this is pretty difficult. Investing in anything, and especially in this market, it's not so easy as it seems. And you generally don't want to hear that when you just start. You feel that, what's this guy talking about? I just go on Twitter or X and check something, and then I just buy something, and it's going to go up, and everyone say it's going to be at this price at this date. So, I mean, how hard can it be? I don't need some complicated messages and education or whatever. I'm a genius. I don't need it. And it's only when you've been in the market for some time and you realize that it wasn't that easy. It was kind of easy to make the money, but it was just as easy to lose it again. That's maybe when you kind of get attracted to, how should I say, a more professional approach, or a more serious and complicated approach. Those people are still here, sort of, and they are maybe more motivated now. Maybe they saw my channel in the height of 2020, 2021, and felt that, what's this schmuck talking about? I don't need it. And then it went up, and then Bitcoin didn't go to 100,000, as everyone said. Instead, it went to 15,500. And then maybe when coming back, realized that maybe this guy had a point after all. So we have all-time high in almost practically all metrics at this time. The big realization that if people don't have the energy to watch the whole show today, I'll say it at the beginning. The big realization you have to get is that when you're buying or selling, there is someone on the other side. If you're buying, there is someone selling. And because money is unfairly distributed, a few people have a lot of money, most people have little money. It kind of looks like this. So the probability that the person who's doing the exact opposite has a lot more money than you, that probability is very high. So if you're buying, why are they selling? And if you are selling, why are they buying? It's like you have to change the mental image from that this is just a pool and you go in there and do whatever. You have to think that it's a football game. You have to imagine that you're going out on the national stadium, because on the other side, it's probably professionals. So you're going out on the national stadium facing, I don't know, FC Milan, or, FC Barcelona, but you're from Italy. So I don't know, what's your favorite team?
I don't follow football, but yeah, Milan or Juventus or whatever, okay. Inter, those three, yeah.
Juventus. It's Juventus on the other side. You're out there. There's like 100,000 people watching. And what most people do is that they go out there. They have no plan, really. They have no strategy. They have no real training. They kicked some ball in primary school and shot some goals. So they feel that, how hard should it be? I just take the ball and shoot it in the goal. That's my entire plan. And then what happens is that they don't get to touch the ball. And Juventus wins with, 50 goals. That's when they realize, oh, actually, maybe I needed to practice a little bit. And I need to maybe develop some strategy. I need to have an idea of how to go about this. And then when you do that, you realize it's not that difficult, actually. It's not that difficult to arrive at the methodology that works. But if you just go with your gut, if your only plan is to shoot the ball in the goal, it doesn't work for most people. I asked our community to send in, their stories. And these are people who have not gone through education or something like that. And the stories were, I estimate, about 95% of people who had lost money. They had usually made some money. They made a lot of money. They bought some altcoin or they bought Bitcoin early and so on, but they also lost a lot of money on the way down by not protecting capital, not really having any strategy. Yeah, 95% lose money in the market. This is the most appreciating asset of all human history. Nothing has ever gone up so much in so short time as Bitcoin and the whole crypto did. So this is like the easiest market that has ever existed. Still 95% lose money if they don't have a plan or any tools or any strategy. And how is that even possible? You think, how is that even possible? If you just do random event, you're going to make money. If you just throw darts randomly, buy, sell, whatever, you would make money in that. So how is it possible to lose money? Even people who discovered Bitcoin very early, they buy a little and it goes up and they feel, wow, this was amazing. I'm so happy that I discovered this and it went up. Then they do one of two things. Either they feel I need to take some profits now, so they sell it, and then it continues going up and they feel like I was such an idiot for selling. I sold it too early. I should have held it. And they buy back and it goes up even more. And they feel, oh, now it's too much money. I really need to sell now. So they sell it. And, they say things like, no one ever gone broke taking profits. So they sell it, they take profits, but it continues going up. It continues and they feel stressed and sidelined. They feel, okay, now I'm buying and this time I'm not going to sell it. So they buy back. And this time it starts going down. But now they think, I'm not going to do the mistake I did last time, So they hold on to it while it keeps going down and down and down and down. And it goes down much more than they could imagine. They thought it would go down 10, 20%. It turns out it went down 80, 85%. And then you start feeling that it's over. This was wrong. After all, I was wrong after all. I better sell now while there is still a little money left. And that's probably the bottom, because at the bottom, it is the bottom because the last optimist has sold. Everyone has sold. That's the bottom. So that's, by definition, is the point where it feels the most depressing. There's no hope left. Otherwise, those people wouldn't sell, right? So it wouldn't go down. So that's when they sell. What happens then? It starts going back up again. And you feel even more like an idiot. Like, how is this possible? I'm the biggest idiot. I should never have sold. So this time, you think also, I'm not going to do the mistake I did the first time. I bought too little. This time, I'm going to buy big. So you buy big because it feels it's going to 100K and you buy a big chunk of money. And that's when you're feeling very euphoric. Everyone is talking about how great it is, how far it's going to go up. And that's probably the top. So you bought, even though you made money through this journey earlier, now you're buying more and you're buying at the top possibly, and you start holding it on the way down again. So if we rely only on our gut, we're going to consistently get it wrong. We're going to buy when everyone is talking about it and there's laser eyes and we feel like it's going to 100K for sure. Even the barber is talking about it. The taxi driver, everyone is saying it's going, that's where we're buying, or at least buying more, putting in more money. And then when it feels as most depressing, the worst possible situation, and the whole social media is filled with people who have either they're not there anymore or they're depressed. That's when we would sell based on our gut. And then on the other side, there sits a professional who's doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And they are making money. So the few people make a lot of money, but the vast majority of beginner investors, they lose money because we kind of tend to go with our gut. So I think the big realization that I hope everyone take away from this episode is that you have to go from a point of shooting from your gut to having some sort of aim. You have to have a methodology, a plan. When you go out facing Juventus, you have to have a plan. You have to have some training. You have to be a little better than you are if you don't know absolutely anything. Otherwise, you will probably lose money. That's something that people don't want to hear when everything is pointing to the sky and so on. They feel it's not necessary or it's wrong because everyone on Twitter is saying that it's going to be at 100,000 at this particular date. That's going to happen again. It's going to happen every cycle. These cumbersome people like me who are saying that you need to, learn about position sizing and risk management and have some sort of understanding maybe of technical analysis, trend direction, and so on. That doesn't jive so well during the height of the bull market, but after people have gone through a full cycle, they usually realize that it's worth the effort.
It's super well said. There is a quote that I love so much that it says, if I had to chop down a tree, I would spend half of my time in sharpening the blade, right? So again, invest in yourself is step number one, because if you avoid investing in yourself, you will pay money to learn lessons later on.
And I think that perhaps you have to go through it. Perhaps you have to lose money one time, because another insight is that all people who remain consistently successful, they have done these mistakes. I think maybe other people's mistakes are not enough, even though I'm saying it here. If you've never felt it, you're going to feel skeptical or feel that, well, that doesn't apply to me because I'm a genius. So all the successful investors, they have lost money one time. They have gone through this. It's easy to buy, but it's difficult to sell. So they've done the mistake. They've held all the way down, hoping that it will turn around. In the professional, they do the other way around. They hold on to the winners and they cut the losers quickly. Like if it starts going down, when it's a 10, 20% loss, they cut it. But that's very painful. So as a beginner, you're not going to do that. You're going to hold on to it and hope that it turns around and goes up. While the professional will hold on to the winners instead, the ones where it's gone up. And if, as a beginner, you feel, oh, really, I should sell now. I should take home the profit before it goes away, because no one ever gone broke taking profits, right? But that's kind of wrong, because in these crazy markets of technology, almost all the gains will come from a few winners. And then if you consistently sell those too early, you don't have a sound process. It's like if you're a VC in Silicon Valley or Dubai or something like that, that you invest maybe in 10 companies, 9 of them probably will fail, but one might make it. And that one is going to go up so much that it compensates for all the ones that didn't make it. Here in the markets, it's better because we don't need to hold the 9 ones to zero. We can cut them when they start going bad. We don't need to hold it to zero. While if you're a VC, you probably can't sell the failing company. But if you start selling the one that's actually start making it, if you start selling that one too early, you have a 0% chance to make it as a VC in Silicon Valley. And it's the same here. It's wrong advice to say no one ever gone broke taking profits if you're in a very high risk, high reward environment, because most projects are going to fail. So you need that one that makes it to kind of make the whole equation work. And so there's a lot of these kind of basics that are not so difficult to learn, but you kind of don't really, it's hard to take it in if you haven't gone through the pain one time of, selling your winner when it went up 100% and you felt like a genius, only to watch it for 1,000 times up and realize that was actually life-changing money that you sold too early. But then when it has gone up 100 times, it feels like it will go up forever, and you kind of married to this coin. You feel it's part of your self-identity. You feel that this is who I am. And then when things start going down, the trend is broken, there's a top pattern, parabola is broken, trend has turned down, logging in and selling everything feels almost impossible. It feels like that's who I am. And then it goes down, 98%. Good projects can go down 98% in crypto. And they can still be good projects. But there are these crazy volatility movements, and it feels impossible. It feels like it can never go down more than 20% or 30%, maybe 50%, but it's not true. It can go down 98, 99%. Nothing has changed. It's just that there is no fundamental evaluation, which is different from a stock. A stock, if you own stock in a company, if the share price on Nasdaq or whatever goes down too much, where it's actually undervalued, one person will identify, oh, but this is too cheap now. I buy the whole company. I buy all the stocks. So you buy all, someone will say, okay, I buy all the stocks now. And because if you own the shares, if you own all the shares, that's still worth something, because you get cash flow, right? It's still worth the net present value of future cash flow. So it's still worth something. So stocks have a minimum valuation where it actually is undervalued. Cryptocurrencies don't, because if one person owns all the coins, they are worth nothing. It's worth only what the market is willing to pay for them. There is no floor price, there is no ceiling. And that is different from a stock. And many people don't fully realize that. They think it cannot possibly go down more than 50%. But yeah, it can. It can go down 90%, and it can go down 90% again, and it can go down 90% again, and nothing might have changed really.
The dollar value stayed the same, but if you held Ethereum as opposed to Bitcoin, or as opposed to Cardano, or whatever, Chainlink, whatever altcoins, you could lose a substantial amount of gains because there is a trade in between each other, right? So that's also something else I've learned, because as Benjamin Cohen, which is an analyst I follow, he says the alt, they bleed against Ethereum. So maybe you won't see a dollar value change, but within comparison to Bitcoin or Ethereum, there is a change there as well. It is super, super well said. I think many people fail to realize that there is always two emotions, fear and greed, and we are driven by those two emotions. Sadly, most of the people are going to end up in buying the top and selling the bottom, because whenever you look at the market, exactly like you said, I would argue that there is a small percentage of people, they bought Bitcoin 10 years ago and they still have them. They probably sold when the price doubled. They probably bought like you said, bought the top and then sold the bottom. Education it's a big thing. I feel, if you go on YouTube and you put in Bitcoin or something, you find still a ton of channels where they, pump and dump, they promote Pepe and all those, coins. There is probably like as any other technology, I think we need a solid base of people like you educating people in the market and say, hey, easy. There is a few things to learn before you YOLO your family savings into this thing.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, I have one process, but that I like. It kind of suits me, but it doesn't have to be my process. The interesting thing is that you can go to the library, pick out any book almost on methodology or trading analysis or technical analysis, and you open it in the middle on chapter 7 and you read what methodology they describe there. You go back and check, would that have worked on crypto? And you're going to find that, yeah, that would have worked. Yet 95% lose money. So it's not that the plan is so elusive that we can't figure out the plan. That is not the problem at all. The problem is really the emotions, the consistency. It is so difficult. You bought this coin, you feel so certain about it, price starts going down. And then to log in and sell it as a 20% loss and admit to yourself that you were wrong, that is difficult. And to hold on to that thing that has gone up 100%, 200%, 300%, 400%, you start getting stressed. I made so much money here, I better sell it now. And then wait to hold out, and wait for it to go up a lot, and then log in when you feel the most euphoric, and then sell. It is so difficult. And then to do this consistently, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, the amount of people who can do it is then down to very few. That's what this game is really about. It's not about figuring out the elusive plan. It's the same thing with the football, I guess. Everyone knows the plan. But to actually do it and actually become that good and so on, that takes years of hard work and practice and consistency and sacrifice. That's the interesting thing with this. It's not difficult to figure out the plan.
People get manipulated by the media, like, oh, this guy bought Dogecoin or Pepe or whatever, and they got millions. Yeah, maybe one guy somewhere, but they probably haven't sold. So
And the
like you
thing is
said,
also, they read about it then after Pepe has gone up. I love
exactly.
altcoins. I'm a pro innovation. I think maybe the best projects, they're not even created yet. I think even greater things going to come. So I'm pro innovation. But by the time you read about the guy who made $10 million on Pepe, that's after it has gone up. So they log in and buy Pepe. The guy who made millions, he bought it when no one talked about it, but he somehow identified, or he was just lucky, or he did something to catch it at the beginning of the trend, not at the end of the trend. I'm kind of saying this like I'm laughing on people, but I did the same. My background is not in finance. I'm not an economist or finance guy. I'm a technology guy. I was just like you. I was very early on computers. I was in the middle of maybe the biggest technology revolution of our time. But I didn't translate that into an investing mindset. I did it as an hobbyist, as an employee. I didn't do it as an investor. I did the same mistakes. When I'm in the industry and I'm reading in the newspaper, because at that time we still had newspapers, and I go bank, buy some, and then it starts going down. And because that was the top, that's the time when the newspaper writes about it, all the success stories and so on. And then I think, it's going to turn around, and then it doesn't turn around, and then you feel pain, you log out, you don't even log into that service again for 2 years because you feel so angry. And then when you log in, you feel, oh, it's gone down so much. I should really, sell now while there's still some money left. And that was the local bottom. So I've done all these mistakes. I've done it too. It's not that I'm laughing on other people. I think we all work like that. You have to be aware. And it was only when I kind of left the operational part of technology and kind of thought I have to move in the value chain. I'm the guy sitting creating this value for investors. I should be an investor instead and have other people creating value and try to analyze that. And then I took this as seriously as I've done everything else in my life. I tried to study, I tried to research, I tried to experiment. I built a big database so I could run simulations, and I spent a lot of time and effort on this, and my whole mind and focus, I was obsessing over this. Yeah, that changed everything for me. You have to take it as seriously as anything else worth doing in life, because there is someone else on the other side. When you're buying or selling, there's someone else on the other side, and they are probably professionals. So you need to know more than them, or at least have a plan when you go out there. And then, of course, try to pick a market that has potential to go somewhere. And if we talk about blockchain and crypto, I believe very much in this.
Super well said, by the way. And I love the example you gave about you competing with people there in the market for a major amount of time, and they know what to do, they know how to react, which means they will win. Of course, it's like you are unprepared, and you don't know. I've been there as well myself. I like to say I invested some money to learn my lessons, but for me, the main reason why I'm so keen and my portfolio is really simple. I have a really long-term perspective. I don't gamble on coins, even though it's okay. It's like going to the casino. Crypto, it's a humongous universe. Like you said, there is a gazillion of different coins. I like to stay with Bitcoin because it's one of my favorite, but I do have a percentage of my portfolio, which is tiny, where I gamble on other coins because it's fun. It's like going to the casino. But for me, the main reason was self-custody, because as far as I'm concerned, Bitcoin is the only asset you can own entirely, because everything else is not owned by you. It's owned by someone else who then says or guaranteed you to use it. It could be, for example, I faced a problem in London. I wanted to buy some gold to fight inflations and preserve my wealth. And what happened is I actually went to a private company. I bought some gold, and the guy gave me a piece of paper, but I didn't have any gold. They had a vault with a guy with a gun, and the guy said, well, you can't go and see your gold. Here's some paper, says that you own it. And I was like, well, but then you own it. Like you have the guy with the gun. So I don't have the gold. So there must be a better solution. Also, it's not portable, it's not divisible. For example, moving from London to Dubai, the gold would have stayed in London, God knows. So then I kind of went into a self-custody route and say, what kind of asset I have accessible to me? I look into real estate. Real estate, they're not yours. Like, you don't own the houses. I mean, think about with these sad events that are happening now in the world, in between Ukraine and Russia and all the other wars going on. People have been seized assets all over the world. Like, so you don't actually own anything. There is someone who says somewhere that you have that piece of property, but they can take it back anytime they want. So then if you narrow it down, it's like, well, what is it I really own? And then you have Bitcoin, if stored properly, of course, because if you leave them on exchanges, you do not own them, not your keys, not your coins, right? But if you take self-custody in a proper way, I believe is the only asset you can truly own. And of course, the fact that it's a young asset, it means it moves a lot. If you remember, I mean, go back and check gold in early days, the chart was all over the place. It was doing like Bitcoin now. So I think we have an early opportunity to kind of jump into this asset, which you can truly own if stored properly. And there is also a volatility, like you said. I mean, it's not for everybody to go in. I've done, like you said, I've looked at my portfolio going down 90%. It's not fun because, you know, okay, if you don't sell, they say you don't lose because these unrealized losses. But still, you know, you have a couple of zeros missing from the one you've seen. So it is a roller coaster. But to answer your question, for me, was the journey into self-custody.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I've had the fortune to be part of several technology revolutions because I'm like you. I'm very old. I'm even older than you. So I'm born in the 70s. Yeah. So I got a computer when I was 11 years old. Had 2 kilobytes of RAM. And I was so fascinated. I programmed BASIC and I thought, that, oh, wow, this is really going to go places. Most people didn't believe in it then, and they felt that it's like a waste of time. Shouldn't you go out bicycling instead? Of course, I did that also. But then they asked me, okay, but what's the use case? Or use case wasn't the term. They say, well, what should you actually use it for except playing games or whatever thing you're writing there, printing some things on the screen? Of course, I couldn't really articulate it. I couldn't articulate. My best example was like, yeah, you could categorize your stamp collection, or you could, you know, do some things like that. But everyone's like, okay, but can't you do that? Can't you do that on a piece of paper or something? Like, yeah, you could, you know, could do that also. So it's kind of hard to, but I knew it. I knew that this is going to become big. I just can't really explain what it is, but I just know it. And then little bit later, then came internet. I studied computer science in Sweden, and I started studying in 1992. And we got to use these workstations, and they were connected to internet, and we could do stuff on the internet and send emails and all these things. And I thought it was amazing. And, you know, we also had the dial-up modems. We talked about the dial-up modems before, and all the things you could do with that. Oh, wow. This is, you know, world changing, that you can actually have information at your fingertips and you can do all these things. Most people didn't believe in it. We even had the communications minister of Sweden at the time. She said that, I think surfing on the internet will be a day fly, like something that is fleeting and that will, you know, die tomorrow. Today, most people have forgotten how skeptical they were. But all the objections we're hearing now, that it's no honest person need to use the internet, it's just for porn and criminals. Criminals love the internet, but honest people don't need to use the internet. It's been perfectly fine to send a letter. It's perfectly fine to have, you know, an encyclopedia. It's better. And this is just fraud, porn, and for criminals. That's what the internet is.
I mean, isn't the same for any technology? I mean, electricity, when it was introduced, there is some amazing art. Some people that were drawing, oh,
yeah,
it's
exactly,
the devil.
like of alternate current, because then it was like you have a current that always goes in the same direction, and then some people suggested we should have alternate current going back and forth, and then there was like propaganda trying to explain how dangerous that is. But of course, the other one was also dangerous. There is this skepticism. Most people don't like change. They want tomorrow to be approximately like today, but a little better. But when something comes that is like radically changing everything, most people don't like it. Even people who work with change, even people in technology often don't like change. So it's just most human nature. Most people don't like change. So that was internet. And then I graduated, I started working with telecommunication. And we had something that was like packet data. You can send packet data over the mobile phone and over the mobile network. And it was called Release 97 because this was 1997. It was called ETSI GPRS Release 97. It was this mind-boggling idea that you can send packet data, like IP package, over the mobile network instead of doing a dial-up. Before we had dial-up modems, we had dial-up internet, and now there was this radical idea we should instead send packet data. Most people did not believe in this. And we spent years even trying to get it working, functionally working, so the packets arrived from one end to the other end. That like took years in itself. And then when we had it working, it was really bad. It was so slow. The throughput was bad. It was like practically like 20 kilobit per second. Latency was like 500 milliseconds. So running HTTP and HTML that we use for web, it didn't even work. We had to come up with something called WAP protocol, wireless access protocol, to kind of make it functionally work so the page loads before you die from boredom. The screens were black and white. The experience was so bad, really, really bad. And there we are. We're trying to convince people to invest hundreds of millions, this vision of that we're going to do stuff on the internet on our phones. I have like a tweet that got quite spread. I said everyone laughed, and people say, no, we never laughed about mobile phones. We never laughed about this. But I was there. I was traveling around the world trying to convince people about this, and trust me, everyone laughed. They said, but this is garbage. No one's ever going to use this.
I remember when I had my design studio in Milan and I was trying to sell companies, and I'm talking about big brands with big money. I remember doing pitches and say, hey, we have this thing called domains. You can buy your domain. You can have your website. I remember people saying to me, website? I go on television. I buy newspaper ads. I don't go into the internet. There is no emails. What is that? I have the post office. There was literally, like you said, article on newspaper saying internet is going to die. Like, people did not believe anything. There is an opportunity in the market, because if you want to make money, that's my opinion, not financial advice, you have to see where the market is going to go in the future, right? That's how you prepare yourself, because otherwise you're not going to make it. Otherwise you are the guy who buy paper at the top.
Absolutely. What happened then was that, of course, it gradually got a little bit better. We were there with our lousy first generation GPRS phones with black and white screens. And by the way, I worked at Ericsson, so we built a network. Ericsson doesn't do mobile phones, we build a network. What's in the other end when you take out your phone and you kind of use it, there's something in the other end that's like stuff on the roof, which is the antenna that's connected to a big network. That's what makes it work. And that's what Ericsson built. And that's where I worked for 20 years. And then we made it a little bit better. We had Edge. We came out with 3G, but it still wasn't good enough. It was better, but it was not good enough. The basic, even 3G, never became the biggest technology in the world. Even though it was radically better than 2G, it was still not good enough. We came out with something called HSDPA. That's when the user experience started getting good enough. But 3G still never got bigger than 2G in terms of number of subscriptions. It was only when we came out with 4G, and now we're talking like 15, 20 years later, that it was so good that basically everyone in the world today use it. And today, of course, 5G even better and so on. But it took until 4G until every person in the world has internet accessible. And you have it on the phone, you have smartphones and so on. So it took until the iPhone. We talked about iPhone before we started. It was only when Steve Jobs came out with the first iPhone, which was, by the way, on 2G. It was on the Edge technology. I was the product manager at Ericsson for Edge at the time. We were integrating with Apple's first generation iPhone to make it work. That was when the device became good enough. A few generations later, very few people bought the first iPhone, the second iPhone, but at the few generations later, when it had HSDPA, it started getting good enough. User experience good enough, marketing good enough, and applications good enough. That's how long it takes. And if we now connect this back to blockchain, where are we? We are not at the, iPhone 14 Pro or, 15 Pro or whatever. We're not there. We're at GPRS, or, we're at the first stumbling steps of a new technology. And what happens then? People come out and say, it's only for criminals. No honest
Yeah.
person need to use this new technology. Wire transfers on the bank has worked for 100 years. Why do we need to do something else? We don't need it. Only criminals and using it. Look, it's expensive. It's slow. Capacity is not there. It's congested. It's bad. Yeah, it is pretty bad. If everyone started using Bitcoin today, it would stop working. We can't scale it up today. It's not really there yet. It's the same thing. If everyone in the world would have started using our first GPRS technology, the network would be full. It wouldn't work. You couldn't download, everyone in the world couldn't download gigabytes of data. It wouldn't work. It's the same thing now. But that doesn't mean that the technology won't overcome those obstacles. It's wrong to kind of rule out the technology because the first implementation isn't perfect. And it's also wrong to say that we should ban it because criminals use it. Yeah, they do. They also use the internet, the mobile phone, the personal computer, trucks, bicycles, and every other piece of technology we have ever invented. Honest people use it. Criminals use it. Everyone's going to use it because the technology as such is just a tool. It's a technology you can use for stuff, good things, bad things, and everything in between. So the kind of simplistic approach that everyone takes in the beginning, like some regulators come out and say we have to regulate the internet. We cannot have people publishing information. There has to be an editor of the internet. On the newspaper, we have a responsible editor. Who is the editor of internet? And then there wasn't anyone, and that freaked a lot of people out because the information is powerful. Mobile phones, how can we let people run around with mobile phones? And criminals will use it to organize crimes. We have to ban this mobile phone thing. Internet, I mean, it's the same thing with happening now with crypto, but it's too simplistic approach. We have to both enable honest people to use useful technology for good things and catch the crooks. And that takes effort. Like on the mobile system, there is a whole subsystem that's called lawful intercept with an international standard and implementation that I think is good. It kind of helps catch the criminals. If someone kidnaps someone, it's possible for law enforcement to locate where their phone is. But everyone on the street cannot do it because you need a court order and there's a special procedure to get access to that system, and who accesses is logged for all eternity so that you can review later that nothing, it hasn't been misused and so on. We have to do the same with crypto, and with blockchain, we have these amazing tools that actually everything is logged forever, and you can deploy AI tools to sift through all that information. And I think once this is fully built out, this will be the best tool that has ever existed to catch economic crime, because you literally log all activities on a public ledger accessible for everyone in the world forever. So even if you can't crack it exactly this moment, maybe next week, or it's possible to sift through this information and kind of unnest what has been going on. So I think it's probably the worst possible tool for economic crime, because you actually, it's like broadcasting your robbery on Facebook or something. It's always going to be there for everyone to watch. So
exactly. And if we talk about truly decentralized technology, there is nothing more transparent than a immutable ledger in the ether forever there. So imagine if you are someone who tamper elections, who controls money, of course, you don't like it because you won't be able to to tamper it anymore. But if you really want to talk about transparency and decentralization, well, if you want to be true and real, well, there is no better technology. Code is law. Humans are the one they're going to go into and tamper. Of course, if I'm a evil person, I don't want the transparent, decentralized ledger. I want to be me. counting the axis so that I can manipulate the market.
Exactly. And just to kind of conclude the whole story on the technology, and just to make it clear, I don't work at Ericsson anymore. I left there, 6 years ago. And then since then, my focus has been blockchain technology, because I feel that after the personal computer, internet, the mobile phone, mobile data technology, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, it is blockchain, which is the next big technology that will have as big impact on our society as any of those three did. AI, of course, also that is also happening. But that also took 30 years. I studied AI in 1992. It's the same principle now. It just takes that long. It takes much longer than everyone thinks. But I'm convinced, I'm more convinced than I've ever been with any of those other previous technologies, that blockchain will have this big impact. Why? Because you cannot find anyone who can look you in the eye and say that they don't believe that global money on the internet has a point. Even the biggest crypto haters, the people who hate Bitcoin for whatever reason, they can't look you in the eye and say, I don't believe that global money on the internet has any use. They can't say it with a straight face, because everyone, without exception, realize that it is useful. We start living more and more of our lives digitally. Maybe for you and me who have this long experience, that was obvious many years ago, that we'll start living more digitally. But now, after COVID and the lockdowns that happened in many countries, I think that's kind of obvious for everyone that the digital world, our life on the digital domain, is also real, sort of. And then having money that's native to that domain, that is global, because internet is global. You and I are sitting in different countries. People listening here is all over the world. It's become global. Of course, having global money, like we have global internet, we have a global telecom standard, we have global computers. The iPhones are the same in the whole world. The MacBooks or whatever, they're the same in the whole world. Of course, having global money is useful. There is no doubt. And then it has all those other benefits that you mentioned. It's divisible. It's easy to transfer. You don't have counterparty risk, which it's easy to forget that is even relevant until something happens. I think a lot of people kind of realized that during the previous financial crisis, that in 2008, that's actually a thing. Now, this year, we got a scare. A lot of companies in Silicon Valley, they had their money that they had painfully raised and so on with the Silicon Valley Bank. Suddenly, they lost the money. It's fractional banking. If you deposit money, they don't have the money at the bank. They take the money and they invest with it, which is illegal when you do it in crypto, but the banks can do it. And they lost it. They speculated on government bonds and they went the wrong way. They lost the money and they say, sorry, guys, we lost your money. It's gone. Poof, it's gone. What happens then? Yeah, will there be a bailout? Will there not be a bailout? This time there was a bailout. Okay, so everyone, got their money back. And with Bitcoin, we have other risks. Perhaps there will be a catastrophic bug, but counterparty risk we don't have. That's not a risk that we have with actual, like physical, real Bitcoin. The Genesis block, second bailout for banks. This is the time that it was created for. And I've posted several videos and talked about it, that a lot of very powerful people from the traditional financial world, they kind of recognize this now, that that is actually a benefit to not have counterparty risk. This is real. This isn't going away. It's not a day fly, because it is actually useful to have global money on the internet. And of course, we have to also have the tools that we can catch criminals, but that can be done also. And I argue that it's easier to do
exactly
on a public ledger than it is if you have some, I don't know, opaque bank accounts in some offshore locations and the structure of shell companies and so on. More difficult to uncover, I would guess. And like on the telecom, we built systems that's called lawful intercept, that has a global international standards that everyone have agreed on, and that actually works. I think it's made the world better than if we didn't have them, and it's worked well for 20 years. And it can be done even better with blockchain, for sure.
I agree. I think the only person who's against the blockchain is someone who doesn't want transparency. So he's a shady individual because they can get caught with transparencies. And building on everything you said, which was so well said, I would also add, for me, I understand I represent a minority of people. People don't care about decentralization. People don't care about ownership. Hence why bank existed for so long, because people want to blame other people saying, hey, it was your responsibility to keep my money, so I can sue you, whatever. But besides all of these things we just painted, I think there is a fantastic missing ingredient that people fail to see, which is exactly like you said, we are moving, I also believe, into digital, right? Back in the days when we used to be kids, we used to collect Pokemon cards or whatever, toys, we have collectibles in real life, but we're moving into digital. So we need a digital ownership of some sort, which is going to allow people to own assets. They could be money, they could be paintings, they could be anything, they could be documents, it could be your ID, but into a digital format. So how are we going to store those digital files? How we are going to allow people to say it's mine, it's yours, it's theirs? We have to build a system of network which is going to basically solve all these problems. So if you are bullish in technology, you cannot be bearish on crypto or on the blockchain.
We have only invented one technology. In the history of humankind, we've only invented one technology for provable digital ownership that can be transferred between different people, and that is the blockchain. So, next year, Apple is going to come out with their first VR, AR headset. This is like the first generation product. So this is like the first black and white phones almost, but this is going to get better also, and the experiences are very powerful. So, and then how that will make the digital world even more real. And then how do you own something in the digital domain? And this is blockchain technology is the only technology we have. When I studied computer science in the 90s, we didn't have any solution. There was no solution for transferring digital ownership. If you take, the file and you email it to someone else, there is the problem with the double spend problem. You can email it to two people, and at that instance,
and they both have
don't
it.
think they have it.
Yeah.
And if that's a financial transaction or something of value, like skin in a game or something like that, that's a problem, because they're both going to think they have it and they're going to go and sell it and they're going to pay you, and the whole system doesn't work. We couldn't solve it. The only way to solve it was to put a third party in the middle. And that third party has a database with accounts keeping track of, now this person has it, and now I move it to this person. And that is the bank. The bank keep track of the bank accounts, and that because that's the only way we had to transfer digital ownership. No other possibility. We couldn't figure it out. Now we have it. Now there is a solution for this problem. We don't need to have a third party involved. The two parties can send the skin or the digital ownership to each other. We have solved the problem. And that solution is here. It's not going to go away because it's useful. It's very useful in the digital domain. And that's why this isn't going away. Then you also talked about decentralization. And I agree with you. Most people don't care about decentralization. 99% couldn't care less about decentralization. At least in the Western world, we don't have, oppressive regimes that is going to confiscate all our money or something like that. So most people don't care about it. But a lot of people care about another feature that it also brings, and that is permissionless. A lot of people in the world today, I've lived in 10 countries. You've also lived in a lot of countries. I've lived in a lot of also poor countries in Asia when we were building out the mobile networks. And those people, they don't have access to the financial system today. They don't have an account on HSBC with, trading possibilities where they can trade stocks or something. They don't have that. Even if you live in the most maybe advanced country in the US, you live in the US, and you're a brilliant mind. You want to invest in some startup company that you realize that this one is really going to go places. I want to invest in that, and I've studied everything, I know everything. Then there are laws in the US and saying, no, you can't, because you're not accredited. You're not an accredited investor. You have to be rich first. And if your dad wasn't rich, you need to have a rich dad to be allowed to invest in this one. While blockchain, and if you go on Uniswap or DEX or something, for the first time in the history, the playing field is completely level. It doesn't matter who your dad is. It doesn't matter which country you live in. It doesn't matter color of your skin, your gender, oppressed, privileged, doesn't matter. For the first time, we're all on the same playing field. Only your brain matters. If you study, if you know what you're doing. The guy, the poor guy in Africa or the hedge fund manager in New York, they play on the same playing field. Still need to have the mind, and otherwise it will still get out competed. But at least for the first time, everyone has his chance because it is permissionless. And the people who are privileged today generally don't like the idea that it should be, inclusive. It's like we're pro-inclusiveness, but not for them. Those cannot be inclusive. They have to stay out. Don't let the plebs in. They have to be out. This is definitely part of the problem today when saying we have to crack down on, DeFi. Okay, but why? Actually, because it's completely transparent. It's the same for everyone. It's completely public. It's not, it's useless for whatever tax evasion or anything. It's public. Record is public forever. Why crack down on that? Should crack down on fraud and centralized exchanges that are actually just working like banks. There was no possibility to sit from the outside and discover that some of these centralized exchanges are already $3 billion short or something because they've spent the money. It was very difficult, or I'd argue impossible, to see from the outside. But on the blockchain, the real blockchain, it is actually transparent.
I mean, for me, it was mind-blowing when I started my journey into understanding what is money. It was there are two books that changed my life. So one is Rich Dad Poor Dad from Kiyosaki, and the second one is The Bitcoin Standard. So those two books, they completely basically rewire my brain entirely, because I was under the impression I know what money is, I trust my bank, everything is fine. But then when you look into it, it's like, okay, wait a second, exactly like you said. So the bank doesn't have my money to begin with, and the money I have, they're losing value because the dollar, which is the reserve currency so far, has lost basically 99% of its value since inception. So there are two major opportunities. I don't want to say problems. So one is like, where are we storing our value? And two, who has it? And then when you start to untangle those things, well, then the blockchain has all the solutions. But like you said, the people in charge of those two things, so what is money and who stores them, they don't want us to know because otherwise they will cease to exist. Remember, I'm sure there is a saying that says Bitcoin fixes this.
Yeah, so, definitely. I like to think well of people. I think a lot of the people who are against crypto and against Bitcoin, they don't do it out of malice. I don't think that they wake up in the morning and feel we're going to try to shut all these people out. I think it's more subconscious. Most people don't like change in the first place. And then when there's radical change, like first these, bloody technology guys, first they, took away our control for information with internet, and then all these things, and they're going to print their own money now. These programmers saying they're going to print their money and you can all go home. Of course they don't like it. They feel like, what are they doing? This is complete chaos that's happening now. We have to protect the stability of our country is at stake. So I think that they do it. Most people still do it well. They don't like change. They feel that this is very chaotic. It's very threatening. And need to be reined in and controlled and boxed in a little bit. But of course, you're also influenced by the world that you've seen. You're influenced by how the world works today. And the traditional financial industry is very powerful. They have a lot of lobbyists that work to protect their interests. And maybe they realize that we cannot stop this technology change, but we can probably delay it for a while. We can at least push it into the future. We have to do more investigations. We have to, put pause on things. And then, of course, using all the rhetorics like, look here, there's a criminal who used it. Look here, terrorists that use it. Yeah, that is very unfortunate. But they also used all other technologies. And we have to, the takeaway from that isn't to ban the technology. We have to find the crooks and stop them, just like we do with all other technology. That's what we need to do.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. You made my day.
It was so fun talking to you. Happy to make new friends, and I hope that you guys learned something. And we have only one thing left. You have to say tack. Thank you, tack.
Tack.
Tack is thank you in Swedish.
Tack. There you go. Tack Larsson. Bye.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.